Hey everyone, Chad with Stellarbot, and this is Guitar Module 1.4. In this video, we are going to be talking about chords, how to build chords, like where they come from, and then we're going to do our first chords on guitar. Woohoo! First chords! It's going to be good. So, in the last video, we talked about intervals, which is the distance from one note to another note, which involves two notes. A chord is three notes put together. That gives it that kind of layered effect, like that. On guitar, we're going to use 5 and 6 string chords, and so what we're going to end up doing is doubling some of those notes. So the things that you need to know is that any chord has a root, a third, and a fifth. In other words, we're going to combine in a scale the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. If I use my open E string or my high E string like I did before, and if I put all of those together, that would be there we go. So those are those three notes played together. And for now, I'm going to do all my open shapes within the first 3 frets, because that's just kind of a good place to start. And so that is a major chord. Remember, a major is kind of a happier sounding chord, whereas a minor chord, which would be, is kind of a sadder sounding chord. So that would be those 3 notes together would make up that E minor chord. So you have an E major and an E minor. So you notice 2 of those 3 notes are the same. The root is the same because they're both E, and then the fifth is both the same, and the third is the determining note. So to make a major chord a minor chord, we're going to take that third and we're going to drop it down a half a step. So just like in the major scale, it goes whole step to get to that third. In a minor scale, it would be whole step, half step, and that is what makes the chord minor versus major. So that's why, so E major versus E minor. So you're not typically going to have an E major and an E minor in the same song. You may sometimes, but if we're sticking true to the scale, then typically you're just going to have one or the other. So let's talk about where to do your first chords. So on guitar, it just turns out that the key of G is a good key to start with, because most of the chords that go in that key, that are built on the G major scale, are the easiest to play at first. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you chord shapes in the key of G, as well as easy versions of those that don't require as many fingers, because chords are difficult to do if you are first starting out on guitar. And so to ease you guys into it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the original shape, and then we'll do the easy shape, which means we're just going to take away a couple strings. So first things first, we're going to do G, and there's a couple different ways to play G, and I'll show you them. First of all, just to show you where the G comes from, the G chord is going to have the 3 notes of G, which is E, F, F sharp, G. So our root is going to be the 3rd fret on the low E string. And then if you recall, to get to the rest of the 2 notes that I need, I'm going to use G as my root, and then I'm going to go whole step, to get to my third, which is B in this case, or G, A, B, and then my last note is the 5th, which is going to be, if this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th. So it's G, A, B, C, D. So my 3 notes that make up the G major chord are G, B, and D. If we were doing do, re, mi, fa, sol, that is do, mi, sol, right there. So I'm not going to play them up here. I'm gonna do them down here, and so we're gonna kind of stack our notes vertically as opposed to horizontally. And So one way to do the G chord is like this. So I'm going to put my second finger on the G root note on the low E string, and then my third ends up being on the A string 2 frets over, which is the B, so that's my third. And then I'm going to use my index finger. So on a chord diagram, this is going to be 2, 1, and then down here I have 3 and 4. So those are going to be the bubbles on your chord diagram. And if I put them all together, it's going to sound like this. So that is a good sounding G chord. When you're first starting out, chords are very difficult, and there's a couple reasons why you may not get a good sound. First of all, your fingers may not have enough arch on them, and so if they're laying too flat, you might end up accidentally laying on another string, which is going to make it go kind of tinky, and it's not going to sound as good. So it might do something like that, where you're like, oh, doesn't sound good. Why doesn't it sound good? Well, that's one reason. Another reason is you want to do your best to try to get as close to the front of the fret with all of your fingers as possible, because the further back you are, the more strength is required to keep that string contacted to the metal fret, which is how you get a good clear sound. It's the metal on the metal. And so the third thing is, and this is the hardest part, you just have to press really hard. And I know it hurts. It's going to hurt in the beginning until your fingers kind of toughen up. But I promise if you'll make it over that first hump, which is kind of the first couple weeks, and you'll just keep doing it, keep digging in, then pretty soon you'll be able to press hard and it won't hurt. You'll be able to play without pain, but guitar is kind of hard in the beginning, and your fingers are not going to like you for the first couple weeks, and you just have to accept that and push through it, because it's good on the other side, my friends. It is good. So the entire G chord looks like this: 2, 1 on the second fret, 1 string down on the A string, and then on the E string and B string we have 4 and 3 respectively. And so if I do it all together, it looks like that. So make sure you are going string by string and making sure that each note is doing what you need it to. Ooh, so now I've got one that's not sounding good. Then you need to troubleshoot it and go, okay, well, I need to get it as far forward as I can, and then you just need to press down really hard and make sure you're not laying any other fingers down on it. So if it's a string that has a finger on it, chances are you're probably just not pressing hard enough. If it's a string that doesn't have a finger on it and it's still kind of muted, like an open G string or open D, chances are your fingers are laying too flat and you need to kind of arch them up just a little bit better. So that is G. Another way that I could play G if I wanted to kick my pinky out, because it's hard to use your pinky in the beginning, is I could take this note right here, or this finger, and move it down to where my pinky was and play G like that. So you notice that the chord sounds a little bit different because I traded one note for another. I traded a D for a B, and I can totally do that because both of those notes are part of the G chord. So that's another way that you can do it. Some books will teach you to do it like this, with pinky at the top of the chord, ring finger at the bottom of the chord, as in the bottom as in the bass note, and then middle finger like this. This is what I call summer camp G. If you look at my fingers, that is very difficult to do. We could maybe call that arthritis G as well. So I don't typically use it like this, but if you're looking in like an older book, then they might show you, you might see the diagram written as 4, 3, and 2. So you want to just do what is going to work best for you. Some people have smaller hands, and this is a little bit easier. This is easier for some people. Typically this is the G that I use most often when I'm playing a G chord. Sometimes I'll even take it one step further and I will remove my index finger and then mute. I'll just kind of lay this finger a little bit flatter, which is what I told you not to do, but in some cases it's useful to do it intentionally so that I can just free up this finger to do other things like add different notes. So the chord in that case would sound like this. So I've got that one tinky string on the A string, but when I just strum the chord, you don't really hear it. So that's that. And then this one I can do. Stuff like that, which we will get to that later, so don't you worry about that right now.